Welcome to the walkthrough of problem 1 of chapter 10. So it's write a class named pet, which should have the following data attributes: name, animal type, and age with the double underscores in front of them. And then it should have an init method that creates these attributes. So we'll set them all to something intelligent like none. And then it should also have the following methods: some mutators, which set information in the class. So set name, set animal type, and set age. And some accessors to get the name, get the animal type, and get the age. Then once I've written the class, I need to write a program that creates one of these objects and then prompts the user for the information and puts it into the object. And then it should print it out. It should use the accessor methods to retrieve it and print it on screen. So this is a really boring class, and I'm going to have a little bit of a rant at the end of this, but I'm going to do it right now. So first of all, we have a class named pet. We started off with class name, colon, and then we hit enter, and everything that's going to be indented is part of that class. So here we have class pet. So we need an initializer like this, def init, and that's going to have self. Remember that we always put self in here with our things. Okay, so we've got self. And so it's going to create self.name is equal to none. Let's just set it equal to none, and self.animal type is equal to none, and self.age is equal to none. So we haven't set them yet, so therefore they have none values. That's what I've decided to put there. You could make empty strings, you could do numbers, whatever you think is righteous for you, but in my case, I'm putting none because none makes sense to me. Now I need to have some mutators to set all of those. So def set name, and the first parameter is self, which, Python is going to give to us, and then the name. And then we'll do something like self.__name is equal to name. And we're going to do the same thing for animal type. Set animal type like that. Self animal type. And we'll do self.__animal type, and we'll set that equal to animal type, just like that. And then we'll do def set age, and we'll do self and age, and then we'll do self.__age is equal to age. You see how boring this is? It's not doing anything interesting, in my opinion. It's just like setting data, and that's not a very interesting thing for us. If we right now, you can see it's got these like little things here. What's going on with this? It says it's not accessed, and so what we're doing is we're creating a variable and we're just setting it, but we're not using it anywhere, and that's a really big thing. So because we don't want to have variables, we don't want to have data fields like this. We don't want to have variables that don't do anything. It's great to set them, but if we're not accessing them, if we're not using them, then they're just sort of like wasting memory. So now we need those accessors. Get name, self. Okay, the reason that I'm only putting self here, I don't need any extra parameters because name is already stored inside the pet. So I'm just using self. I'm going to use the self, the object itself, to get self__name. And so here I would return self.__name. And now, as soon as I do that, now that I'm accessing this, you can see that blue squiggly line or that blue dotted line is gone. The dash line is gone because now I'm not only setting that data attribute, I'm also using it somehow, even though it's a trivial use, which is just returning it. Okay, so we need the same thing for the other two. Diff get animal type self, because I'm only getting the information outside of the, or from inside the object. I don't need a parameter other than self. And then def get age like this. Self return self.age. Okay, so here's our class. It's a class named pet. When we create an instance of pet, it sets everything to none. And then we're going to set those things using these methods: set name, set animal type, set age, and then we'll print everything out with get name, get animal type, and get age. So I need a program to be able to do that. And so let's come on down here, def main, and I'll put pass there just for right now so that I can stub it out. And if name is equal to main, then go ahead and run the main program. Okay, so what do I need to do here? I need to create an instance of this pet class. So I do that by saying pet. Well, I'm going to create an instance, but I need to store it into a variable. And that's the important part. If by doing this, I've created an instance of the pet class. Now I have an object of type pet, but I need to store that into a variable to be able to do something with it. So now I can do something like, name is equal to input. What is your pet's name? Like that. And then I would do something like pet.setName and pass in name. Boom, look at that. Because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting that value back from input and plugging it into setName right there like that. So that's one way to do it. I can keep doing this kind of thing, but I'm going to take a shortcut. Well, no, I'm not going to take a shortcut. What am I saying? I really should not take a shortcut. So up next is animal type. So input, what type of animal or what type of pet do you have? Like that. And then we'll do pet set animal type. And we'll pass in animal type. Whoops, just like that. And then lastly, we need the age. And so this needs to be, I'm going to make it an integer. So input, how old is your pet? Like that. And I guess what is your pet's name? Let's make that a question mark too. Let's make that a question mark. And then once we have that, we'll do pet.setAge like that, and we'll pass in age. And now we're going to print all of that information out. We're going to do print. You just entered this information, but the problem makes me want to print it out for you again because duh. That's all I got, right? So print, and so the name of the pet will be pet.getName, and so I can get that name out of there. Print type of it is going to be pet.getAnimalType, like that. And then finally print age, pet.getAge. I really don't like problems like this because they don't actually exercise object-oriented program. Oh, sorry, this is that rant again. I'm not going to rant yet. So now I've created an instance of pet. I use the name of the class and then parentheses to invoke it like a function. And that's going to invoke this initializer function right here, which doesn't require any parameters. There's no parameters after self. So I'm just going to give it an empty parameter list, right, or empty argument list. Then I get the name and I set it. I get the animal type and I set it. I get the age. I turn it into an int. I set the age. And then I print out all the dumb information. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and move this panel position over to the right so that I've got it over here on the right. What is your pet's name? Well, my pet's name is actually Franklin. He's a dog, and he's 14 now. He's an old dog. And so right there, you just entered this information, but the problem makes me want to print it out for you again because duh, Franklin dog 14. And so this is a class for what we just did. Okay. So that's how you would go about doing it. That's what it looks like. Class pet, the initializer, we initialize all of the private fields, these data attributes to none. That's what I chose. Then we created setters or mutators so that we could set each of those by themselves. And then getters to be able to get each of those pieces of information that are stored inside the object. All right. So that's how you would solve problem number 1. Now it's rant time. Okay, the reason that I don't like this is because all you're doing is having some data attributes inside of this object. So we're going to have an underscore name and animal type and age. And when we set it, all we're doing is we're taking whatever data is coming in here and setting it. What if I passed in a number or a Boolean value or something like that here? That would not make sense for a name. What if I ran this like this? Watch. So I'm going to run it. What's your pet's name? I'm just hitting enter. What type of pet? Enter. How old is your pet? -100. You see, it just accepts all of that. So at the least, at the minimum, we should be doing some type of like data validation here to make sure that the information that somebody's entering and then that it's getting passed in here to set name, for example, we should make sure that it's like actually good information. So we should do something like name is equal to name.strip, for example. So that it'll take off all of the white space. And then we'll do something like if the length of the name is equal to 0, like that, then let's go ahead and raise a value error, which is an error that says that's a bad value. And it says name cannot be empty, like that. So if we do that, and I come over here and I again run my program and I try to get away without entering a name, now I get a value error. And so down here, I can do a try catch block and a while loop to make sure I'm getting good input from this. You see how all of this, it's like, boom, right there, value error, name cannot be empty. I should probably do the same thing for animal type because, that kind of information is really important for animal type. So I'll go ahead and put that down here too. So rather than name, I'll go ahead and do that, an animal type, I forgot that right there. I'll paste that in here and I'll do something like animal type cannot be empty. So now we're actually doing something. We're putting some logic inside of this method here that's not just setting it. It's actually doing something interesting, like making sure our data is good, because the whole point of having an object like a pet object where I'm putting data into it is that data should be good. And so where should we care about what part of this code should care about that the data is good? Well, the pet itself, this class, should know what its requirements are for the name. And so in this case, we're not going to accept a name that's empty. We're not going to accept an animal type that's empty. And then down here with age, let's just say that age is an integer. We want it to be an integer. So we'll do something like if age is less than 0, we'll raise it. Whoops. Like that. Oh, I'm going to close that. I don't know, some weird stuff going on there. I'm going to raise another value error like that. I'm going to say age must be non-negative like that, which is, 0 or greater. But, non-negative is a fancy way of saying that. So I'll hit play now. And so I'm going to run this here. So, my dog's name is Franklin and, he's a dog, but he's negative 10 years old. No, I'm sorry. Age must be non-negative. So now we're actually putting stuff inside here that makes sense. Getters, on the other hand, almost always look like this. And there's very little information or little extra stuff that we would put inside here unless it were a special kind of getter, which combines information. So let's go ahead and actually do that really quick. Another accessor is the __ string method like this, which means that we can just print out the pet. So down here, I'm going to print out the pet. So I'm going to print out this pet object just like that, okay? And with the pet object, when I'm just printing it out like that, if I don't have this string method, if I don't have that method, I think we've already seen this, but I'm going to run it again. So what's your pet's name? Franklin, like that. He's a dog and he's 14 years old. And I get this thing right here, which tells me what kind of class it is. It's called PET. It's the pet name. And it's currently inside that main. And you're asking, where does that main come from? That's this main thing that we've always been testing for. It's the main module. That's what it's called. And so here we have the pet class. It's an object of that class at this memory location. And that's not very helpful. So let's go ahead and turn this into something like good. This is an accessor. And it's something that accesses data within it, but combines all three of them in this case is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to return something like, I'll do an F string because it's easier. Name, self.name, new line, age, self.age, like that, and then new line, and then type, self.animal type, like that. So now I've got this really cool string, and it's using all three of our pieces of data that are stored inside here. This is what's known as a computed getter because it's computing something, even though it's just a long string, it's still computing a long string, not just the normal single piece of data, get age, self.age. So now if I run this and I print out this pet, it should print out this here. So I'll run it and I'm going to get, what's the dog's name? What's your pet's name? Franklin. It's a dog. He's 14. And it says here, pet object has no attribute _ name. That's true because I only put one underscore there. Come on, help me out, Python. You should have told me that. Okay, so there we go. Now that I've got that, I'll give it another run. So what is your pet's name? Franklin. What is he? He's a dog. He's 14, not 134. That'd be crazy. And so right there, name, age, and type. So right there. So this is a more interesting getter because it is getting data that is, it's getting a value that's computed from the other values inside it. And so this is a much better class, in my opinion. It does data validation here to make sure that the data that we're getting set here is good. And then down here, we're also like providing a string representation of it. So that's a much better problem 1 for chapter 10.